Right now, you're warm, and you didn't even have to try. Take that away, just bare skin and a winter cold enough to kill you in your sleep before you even woke up. That was normal for hundreds of thousands of years, not one bad season. Your ancestors lived through real ice ages, where sheets of ice buried whole continents, and every one of them won a fight against winter they couldn't afford to lose. So how did a hairless animal built for African heat survive the coldest weather this planet has ever thrown at a human? The worst of it hit 26,000 to 19,000 years ago. Ice sat across Europe, Asia, and North America. The land was flat, frozen, and open, with nothing to block the wind. Trees were scarce, food vanished for months, and the human body simply isn't built for it. No fur, no fat layer, no hibernation switch. Strip a person's clothes off in real cold, and they've got hours, not days. Mammoths had fur. Bears could hibernate. Reindeer could walk somewhere warmer. We had none of that. We had a brain that could plan, and hands that could build what our bodies were missing. Barely enough. It started with fire. Humans had used it for 300,000 to 400,000 years, and by the Ice Age, they were genuinely skilled. Fire pits in Ukraine burned over 600 degrees Celsius, hotter than 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit, and when wood ran out, they burned fat and bone instead. Fire gave them heat, cooked food, hardened tools, and stretched daylight through the darkest months. Then they learned to carry warmth with them. People were skinning bears for fur in northern Europe at least 300,000 years ago. Cut marks on paw bones prove it. But loose skins leak heat through every gap. The real fix arrived around 30,000 years ago. The sewing needle, a sliver of bone or ivory with a tiny drilled hole. One researcher called it possibly the most important invention in human history. It turned a blanket into a fitted coat with sealed seams, and better-fitting clothes may have given early modern humans a real edge over Neanderthals. Hunters also rubbed animal fat over exposed skin to seal in heat, and carved thin slits into bone to block snow glare, the first sunglasses made of bone. Shelter got creative too. On the treeless plains of Ukraine and Russia, people built round houses almost entirely from mammoth bones. Skulls and leg bones as the base, ribs and tusks curved into a frame, hundreds of bones per house, packed with hides and earth. The site at Mezerich is roughly 18,000 years old and was reused for centuries, some of the oldest deliberate architecture we've ever found. Some homes had a cold trap doorway dug lower than the sleeping area, so heavy cold air sank and pooled at the entrance while warm air rose to where the family slept. Worked out tens of thousands of years before anyone could explain why. Thick snow walls insulated shelters too, keeping the inside near freezing even at 30 below, and dense forest cover cut wind exposure dramatically compared to open plains. Staying warm keeps you alive tonight. Hunger is winter's slower killer. So they preserved everything. Freezing meat in the cold, smoking it into jerky, storing it in underground pits, even sinking mammoth meat in cold ponds like a natural fridge. Nothing wasted. In eastern France, hunters used fire and teamwork to drive entire herds into a natural trap at the same site for tens of thousands of years. They also used each other. Packing bodies close together turned people into a heat source. Those who lived alone, especially the elderly, were usually the first to die in a hard cold snap. Life wasn't always cooperative, though. In the worst scarcity, some Ice Age humans turned to cannibalism to survive. Centuries later, medieval European and Russian peasants brought livestock into the ground floor of the house, living directly on top of their own furnace. Some populations adapted physically instead of technologically. The Yahan people of southern South America wore almost no clothing in freezing conditions. Their bodies simply ran hotter, generating more internal heat, aided by a deep squatting rest position that minimized exposed surface area. And then there's the strangest theory of all: hibernation. At Cima de los Huesos in Spain, bones from human ancestors roughly 430,000 years old show cyclical damage, seasonal growth interruptions matching patterns seen in hibernating animals. Some scientists suggest they may have slowed their bodies down through the worst of winter. It's genuinely disputed, but serious researchers are still arguing about it. For hundreds of thousands of years, making it to spring was never guaranteed. Every winter was a test you could fail, and failing meant dying. In a couple thousand years, nothing on this timeline, we went from stacking mammoth bones into a house to tapping a button for heat. The deadliest thing our ancestors ever faced is now something we complain about on the walk to a warm car.